Welcome to my creative space. I'm going to talk today about my first year with knitting machines. 2024, I got my first knitting machine, and I actually didn't get it and start this journey until May. So I didn't even get a full year, but I hit the ground running. I bought a lot of machines, and then I sold a lot of machines that I didn't like. And one of the big problems with knitting machines, as you may know, if you've looked into knitting machines, is you can't go to a dealer and have them show you the highlights of all these different machines, and you get them try them out, and they can ask you questions about what you want to make and what your expectations are, and they can match you up with a machine that's going to work out for your goals. Most knitting machines aren't made anymore, and even the ones that are made, there's so few dealers. And I don't know that I don't even know how many dealers there are where you can actually go and try them out. I think a lot of them are just online anyway. So you can't really do that with knitting machines. And that's frustrating. It was for me. It was very frustrating. I think I went through, gosh, I don't even know how many machines I went through. Let me see here. I tried a Brother 260. A lot of people like that machine. I hated it. I tried a Singer 700. A lot of people like that machine. I hated it. I tried a Bond. That was actually the first one I bought. And it was like my gateway to knitting machines. And I got it to work just enough to where I was like, okay, if this wasn't so fidgety, I would like this. I would enjoy this. And kind of like with weaving, if it wasn't for the long warping process, I would enjoy weaving. And that's something I'm working on too. Finding a loom that doesn't require that long warping process. But that's another video. So I tried those three machines. I bought an MK70. I didn't really like it. I found it, I thought it was a little bit finicky. And I have discovered throughout this process that I really like mid-gauge machines and I like bulky machines. But I like them not to be finicky or fidgety. So that machine wasn't a true mid-gauge. It took yarn closer to the standard gauge, the thinner yarns. It didn't take a DK yarn that well, not like the LK150. So I sold that machine. I had a Brother, I think it was the 348. If that's not correct, I'll put the correct name here if it was the correct name. Okay. It's the travel one that folds up. That was a cool little machine, but it was a standard gauge, and I made a scarf on it. I kind of got used to working with those little bitty tiny needles, and I just decided, after I made that first scarf, that I was like, I don't really like the standard gauge. Because all it takes is really thin fingerling yarns and lace weight type yarns, and there's just not a whole lot I'm gonna make like that. I like that the mid gauge and the bulky machines look more hand knit. They don't look like a store bought knit, so I really like that. And I didn't like the little bitty needles and the finickiness. Again, finicky, fidgety. I don't like it. I settled on the LK150, which is a very popular machine, and it's still being sold today, which is great news for everybody, because buying a used machine is a risk, and it's a pain in the butt. Because there's always something you got to do to it, it seems like. And if there's not something you got to do to it right now, there will be soon. Well, that was my experience. Might not be yours. So, but that's great that you can still buy it. The LK1 and the LK100. I love the LK100. And I've done a video about the LK100, a couple of videos about the LK100, and I've got more that I want to do. The good news about the LK100 is there is a machine out of Japan that is an exact copy of it, and it's being sold on Amazon. I think it is the GK 700, maybe, but it is the exact same thing as the LK100. So you can buy that machine new now. And it's cheaper than the LK150. So if you're on a budget, it's cheaper. It's actually, sometimes I see them on eBay for about the price of a king size Addy. So for the price of the circular knitting machine, which, yeah, you can get them to do a lot of stuff if you're patient and you want to do that. It's just easier on the flatbed machine. Unless you're just already making something circular like a hat, it's just easier on the flatbed machine. And even the hats, I find that I like the tapered hats better than I like just the big hats that are going to have the bulk up on top. With the flatbed, you can make the top smaller like I would in crochet. Like if I was crocheting a hat, I don't make it just one size because it's going to be too bulky on the top of my head and look weird. So I really like that about the flatbed machines. They're just a little more versatile for me and a little bit easier to get a lot of things out of. But anyway, I do have an Addy, and it's a nice little machine if you want a circular machine. But anyway, so that's good news about if you are looking for an LK100 and you haven't been able to find one that you feel confident was a good machine. You can buy a brand new one now that's exactly the same thing. My first year with knitting machines has been an adventure, and I have really enjoyed it. I even enjoyed learning about the machines that I decided I didn't like, and because all of it is a learning process, and just figuring out what you like and you don't like it's kind of fun. So I enjoyed every part of this. Well, I've heard some people say it takes like 2 years to be able to use a knitting machine confidently. And that's not really true. It depends on the machine, and it depends on how much time you put into it. Even with everything else I've got going on, you know, I have a tag business, I train donkeys, I sew, I have other hobbies, I have a family. Even with all that, as I still may learn and made a lot on my machines, especially when I focused in on the machines I really liked, and I was like, okay, I'm putting all my energy into learning these machines and building my skills with these machines. And I don't have machine envy at all for the people who like to talk about all the bells and whistles that their machine has. I have like no machine envy. I went through that with sewing machines. I've been a seamstress a long time, and I went through that with sewing machines, and I learned that sometimes that $200 machine that I got used at the dealers that somebody had traded in, that I actually enjoyed it way more than the $7,000 machine that I thought I was going to love. Yeah, that's just me, maybe. So I have no machine envy there. I really love using the 100 and the 150. And so I have invested in some accessories for them because a lot of the accessories aren't being made. They're expensive. But when I decided these are my machines, this is it. This is what I love. Then I invested in those accessories for it, and that's part of my 9 goals this year. But for 2024, this is what I made from like May to December. These are the things I made. First, my first projects were dog sweaters. The thing about dog sweaters is, and it's a great first project, and I have a video on how to make one if you have an LK100 or another bulky machine of any kind. I've got a pattern and a video tutorial, and you can experiment with so much. And this is how I learned how to do a ribbed hem, and just getting used to the machine and used to doing that hem, and now I can do it without even thinking about it. And you know, and I did a lot of them. And then when I decided I wanted to make a sweater for my little boy dog, I couldn't do like just 2 rectangles because he's a little boy, and if he goes outside, he can't have a rectangle all the way down covering his front. So I had to work on learning how to do, decreases for his sweaters. So, that got me used to doing decreases in a way that was not overwhelming because I had already made a basic sweater for my little girl dogs. So then I just added another skill to it. And of course, I did some little crochet trim and stuff here. And then once I got used to that, I went to the LK 150 and I did some patterning. I started doing, taking that same pattern that I was already very familiar with. And I was able to like concentrate on this buffalo plaid pattern. And then I decided, well, I need to learn how to do some kind of cable. I love textured knits. So, same pattern, but I put these little mock braided cables on this dog sweater. So, that got me really using my latch tool well. And because up to this point, I hadn't really used the latch tool at all. So that got me very used to that. So after I made dozens and dozens of these, and come up with my own pattern for them that worked really well for me, and I can add things to it to expand my skills, then I did make a couple of boleros. And boleros are great because you can make them just a plain rectangle and then, sew up the arm seams. But since I don't really like that look, I like a little bit more tapered look. So I did like do increases and decreases, which was good for me again to put that into practice. Because still brand new doing this. It's also made like a sideways knit. It's not up and down, it's sideways. And I love that. I love that so much for many reasons. Then I wanted to make a bolero and put like a cuff on it. So I did my mock rib hem. And I also learned how to do it on the finishing end, which is a little bit different. And I learned that from a YouTube video. Diane Sullivan has one, and it's a really good video. And so that added to my skills. And so now I got 2 boleros. Made quite a few of these this year. And I want to do some more and like experiment with some different patterning because this is so simple that I don't have to concentrate on making the item. I can like start to add cables. I can start to do all kinds of different things, maybe some Fair Isle, and experiment with that because again, it's something super easy. So this year I made a lot of these. I also made a couple of ponytail hats. I love ponytail hats. And I made 2 of these on my bulky machine. I don't really like this yarn, so I want to make more of these because I love wearing these in the winter, but I want to make them in some yarn I like better. It needs to be a little bit thicker yarn. But I did those mock cables again because that's the other thing I like to do when I'm learning something new is I don't want to just learn a technique on one thing. I want to start looking like how can I apply this technique to other things that I've already made, so I can get that in my head and remember it. And so I did a couple of these with these little mock cables, and those were fun and easy. Now scarves, I love scarves too. I also did the little braided mock cables on some scarves. So I've got some really pretty scarves from my first year in knitting machines. And then I decided to move on to something a little bit more challenging, which was I wanted to make an infinity scarf on the bias. So the scarf is kind of done on this diagonal that you're moving across the machine. Stuff here, just like a little lace pattern, just real random. I did it first with some acrylic, just in case it didn't work out real well. And it turned out really nice and really pretty. So then I got out some of my silk and merino and made another one. And I really love this. I've wore it several times in the fall. And I did this little eyelet edge on it too. So that was really fun to make. I learned how to do something on the bias. It wasn't too overwhelming. I learned how to make this pretty little eyelet edge, how to do the manual patterning, getting my hands used to that. because it's really important to have that muscle memory to me when I'm learning a new craft. So I want to try to like repeat that, so that way I don't have to think about it in the future. And because maybe I'm doing a project that's a little bit harder and I don't want to think about that part of it. I had a really good year. I had a really fun year with the knitting machine. Then I wanted to move on to something a little bit more challenging. I was ready to make a top. I really felt ready, but it had to be the right pattern. So I found Girly Knits, and she had this little tank top pattern and a video. I love video tutorials when I'm learning something new, because again, like back in the day when I learned how to sew and learned how to crochet, I had someone to help me. My mom helped me learn how to sew. I had a sewing instructor right there in town that could help me. You know, crochet, there was a lot of people that crochet. There was a yarn shop. I had, you know, some really well wrote books. And so, but learning a knitting machine, you know, you don't always have somebody. So I knew when I wanted to make a top, I needed a video tutorial. I knew I needed that. And so I found Girly Knits, and this is her little tank top. Now, I'm not a crop top kind of girl, but I didn't want to get creative with the pattern because I didn't really, I don't really know the pattern yet. So I made it, and the fit was good. I'm not super wild about the ribbed hem because it lands right on my waist, and I feel like that's kind of bulky, and I don't need any bulk right there. But with this top, I mean, it was simple enough. I'm already, you know, using my machine pretty well. I already know how to make the hem. So it was just the increase and decrease on the neckline, and I learned how to make an I-cord, which if you've got a flatbed knitting machine, you do not need one of those fidgety I-cord makers. I mean, the flatbed knitting machine makes a great cord. So I highly recommend this pattern, this tank top from Girly Knits. It's great, easy to follow, and it fit good. But since I'm not a crop top girl, you know, I did wear it quite a bit with like little jackets and stuff over it, and it was fine. I loved it. It's so comfortable. But then I made another one, and I made it a size bigger, and I made it longer. I made the hem smaller, but I made it longer. So, but because I made it a size bigger, it was a little bit baggy, but with a little bolero, with a little jacket, it still fit really good, and I still really liked it. It's so comfortable. Great little summer top. But I went back to a size smaller, like the first one, and I didn't make the bottom ribbing quite as long, but I added more to the sides, and this is pretty much a Goldilocks top for me. And it looks great with little jackets and stuff, and I'm probably going to make more of these, and I'm probably going to, because I understand the pattern and I don't have to think about the pattern now. I want to think about adding some Fair Isle and maybe some different stuff like that to it. And because I love the top, I love wearing it. It's so comfortable. Now I want to put some other skills into these tops. So far, I feel like I've made a lot my first year, just starting in May with a knitting machine, especially since I kind of flitted around from machine to machine for a little while, trying to figure out what was my favorite and what was my dream machine. That's probably one of my favorite projects. This is the last project I did for 2024. I made a cardigan. This is my Stash Buster cardigan on my bulky machine. And I made up the pattern. It was super easy. There's like no shaping to it really. I used a stripe generator to figure out how I wanted to do my coloring. And I just really wanted to use up some of this yarn because I'm definitely on board for that no buy 25. I'm not going to buy any fabric. I'm not going to buy any yarn this year. I don't have a huge stash, but it's getting to the point where if I keep buying, I will have a huge stash, and that creates a creative block for me to have too much. So I wanted to start using up some yarn, and I'm definitely going to make another one of these. And but I'm going to make it a little bit different. I made this one really big and bulky, and I love it with a pair of leggings. And this was the first time I experimented like rehanging something. And then I did, you know, a hand tool 2x1 ribbing, and I really enjoyed that. It started out where I made it and I was like, well, I'll just crochet the ribbing on it. And since I lost my Crojo a few years ago, that was really boring. I don't care to do a little bit of crochet, but that was just going to take forever, and I was going to hate every minute of it. I don't even mind projects that take forever if I'm enjoying the process of that project, but I don't enjoy lots of crochet anymore. So that was going to take too long to do the whole thing. So I was like, okay, I know I could rehang knitting and, you know, maybe make a band around this cardigan. And that worked out really well. It challenged me a little bit. I learned a new skill. I learned that it was not very hard. It was actually really fun. I really liked it. So I'm going to make this pattern again with some more yarn that I want to stash bust. But I'm going to make it a little bit more fitted because I made this one extra big and bulky to wear with leggings. I want to make the next one a little bit more fitted and a little bit shorter to wear with jeans. So I'm working on that pattern. So my first year with the knitting machine, I feel like it was productive. I feel like I learned a lot. And I feel like I got very familiar with the two machines I decided are my dream machines. So I've enjoyed this journey so much. And I can't wait to go through my goal list for 2025. I feel like it's, I've got some fun goals and I look forward to them. And if you're looking into knitting machines and, you know, what can a beginner make on a knitting machine, I hope this encourages you, because there's a lot you can make on a knitting machine that there's not a very big learning curve. At least I didn't think there was. It was way harder for me to learn how to crochet than it was for me to learn a knitting machine. I actually felt like they were kind of easier than sewing, at least the kind of sewing I used to do. So anyway, if you're thinking about knitting machines, I hope this encourages you, because they're really great. And right now there's some options out there, so you don't have to buy a used one if you're afraid of getting something that doesn't work, as often happens to people. The next video I do, I'm going to go through what I'm going to be doing this year for this channel. And I've not forgot about the LK100 series I wanted to do. I just kind of ran into a little injury here, so I've not been able to do it. But I want to get, I want to go over what I'm going to do for this channel and my goals for 2025, to expand my skills and just enjoy being creative and making stuff that I can use and that, you know, brings a lot of joy. Hope if you're thinking about knitting machines, make 2025 the year you go for it. And I hope you're doing something creative today. Y'all have a good one.